All right, I think I am streaming. So I just bought this new MacBook, and it's got one of the new fancy M3 processors. And this is essentially a fresh system. The only thing I've done ahead of time is I installed Chrome and I installed Xcode. So before I get started with installing the rest of the software, I just want to go through and show a couple things here real quick. So the first thing I'm going to show here is if you come over here to App Store, and I've got two monitors set up here. One of the things I did find out is that I have a setup at home where I can plug in a MacBook and it'll connect to multiple monitors. And what I found was that since I bought a base model, the base model does not support more than one extended display. There's a workaround for that, which I'll get into later. But for right now, I'm just working with two displays, and I'm actually streaming off of the laptop's actual display. So if things look a little bit smaller than they normally do, that's why. So install Xcode. This is actually pretty simple. All you have to do is go to the App Store app, which is in the Apple menu. Go to App Store, and then come over here and type in Xcode. And what that'll do is that will pull up the most recent version of Xcode. Like I said, I already installed that, and one of the reasons why I did that is because a lot of the tooling that gets used for all the other tools and stuff that I'm using for software development requires that the Xcode command line tools is already installed. But other than that, the system essentially is fresh. So I'm going to show you what I do to go ahead and get all this stuff set up. So now that I have Xcode installed, what I'm going to go ahead and do is I like to use the iTerm terminal. So I'm going to come over here and just type in iTerm2, and it brings me over here to this page. I'm going to select download. It's going to download, and what that does is that opens up a zip file here. I'm going to take that zip file and I'm just going to move it over here to my applications. Come into my applications, and it should be in there. I think I might have skipped it. And there it is right there. So I'm going to take that, I'm going to drag that down here. And this is pretty important to me. I use this tool all the time, so I'm just going to leave it right here in the dock. Now that's there, I'm going to go ahead and select Open. And that has just opened up iTerm. I like to have it a little bit bigger than that, so I'm just going to blow that up a little bit. And it looks like we're using the ZSH shell, which is good. That's the shell I want to use. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is, the next thing I want to do is I want to install OhmyZSH. So I'm going to come over here and say OhmyZSH. And the nice thing about this tool is that one of the things that it lets you do is it gives you all this colorful extra add-ons here. And here's the instructions for installing that. So I'm just going to go ahead and select that, copy it, and come back into the terminal, paste that into the terminal, and now it's coding OhmyZSH. Okay, so now I've got OhmyZSH installed. There's a bunch of different customizations you can do with this. I'm not going to worry about that right now, but what I am going to do is I'm just going to show a couple of things. So one of the things that you use for kind of configuring, let's say if you need to add like an environmental variables or update the path variable, that's usually done in the ZSHRC file. So if I come over here and I type in them, ZSHRC, this is normally something I would not show, but since this is a fresh system, there's really nothing in here. So I'm just going to go through here and show that this has a bunch of different settings and stuff in here. And I'm going to go ahead and quit out of that. All right. So now that we've done that, the next thing I want to do is I want to install Homebrew. So I'm going to come back here. I'm going to say Homebrew install. And this takes me to the Homebrew page. And here is the link here. And I'm just going to paste this in here. And it's asking for my password. All right, and enter. And now it's searching for the command line tools. Like I said before, this is one of the reasons why I installed Xcode first, is so I can get the command line tools. And it looks like it's going ahead and it's getting that stuff set up now. All right, it's downloading the command line tools. I'm getting that installed. So while that is going on in the background, I'm gonna come back here. Another one of the tools I want to set up is Docker. So I'm gonna come over here and I'm gonna say Docker and Docker Desktop. All right, so I'm going to download, and it already recognizes that I'm using one of the M series chips, so I'm just going to go ahead and select that, and it is downloading that over here. I'll just let that download. Check over here, and it's still installing the command line tools. All right, so now we've got Docker installed. So if you're not familiar with Docker, one of the things that's really neat about Docker is that it gives you kind of like this little virtualized environment where you can run containers on your system. So think about like Linux, a way that, the way that most applications run on the internet is they're generally run on either a Linux virtual machine or on a container running on a Linux virtual machine. So what this does is essentially it lets you run those same containers, but on the Mac desktop. And this tool is also available for Windows and Linux. You can use it on either one of those. So I'm just gonna go ahead and select that and move that over here into my applications and get that installed into my applications. There we go. And see, this is a big one. It's about a little over 2 gigabytes here. All right, so it looks like Brew is installed. So I'm just going to do Brew help to see if that worked. Nope. Let's see here. Oh, it says run these 2 commands here to get this added in. So basically what they're doing is they're running the echo command here to add this to Z profile page. So I'm going to select that and paste that in there. Now let's say I didn't copy it properly because let's try this again. Okay, and I'm just going to verify that real quick. I'm going to do cat CHRC, and it looks like it added, or maybe it didn't. Yeah, it added the homebrew stuff here. So to get that to load, I'm just going to type in dot. You can also say source space tilde dot zshrc, and that loads it up. So now I can say brew help, and there we go. So now we've got brew installed. All right, so I'm gonna come back here. I believe that is installed here. So I'm gonna come back over here to my applications, and sure enough, there's Docker. I'm gonna take that and I'm gonna drag that down here and open that up. And so it's going to, it's verifying the Docker installation. That's going to take a little while. There we go. And voila. So I'm going to say accept. And I'm going to say finish. It's asking for my password. All right. And it's already telling me that a software update's installed. Rosetta enables features to run on Apple Silicon Macs, reopening applications. Okay, so we'll install that. So if you're not familiar with Rosetta, Rosetta is essentially the technology that Apple developed for being able to run x86 or essentially Intel x86 code on the Mac. Before the M1, M2, and M3 series of Macs, one of the things that the Macs ran on, they ran on Intel's chips. And so what this tool is going to do is it's going to go ahead and it's going to get that set up so that when we're running any, containers that require, let's say, that type of environment, they'll be able to run it using Rosetta. So it's looking for that date. I'm just going to do that. And in the meantime, I'm going to sign in here. And you can't see it's bringing up a screen here. But I'm going to type in my username, connect. All right. Log in. All right, so let's take a look here for Docker. All right. All right, so there we go. It's still looking for the update here. And I'll just say full stack developer, local development, debugging images. All right, continue. And that's starting the Docker image. A lot of times I don't have this running. I usually just run this whenever I need to be able to test to make sure that my code is going to run in a Docker container, especially one that's going to be uploaded to one of the different cloud hosting providers. So I'll let that go. And let's come back here to I'm going to do a search here for OMyZSH. And yeah, we'll take iTerm fine. All right, so next thing I want to do here is I want to see about getting the agnoster theme set up. I like the agnoster. So I'm gonna come over that. And let's do this. Agnoster. Look at this setup. Powerline batch font. So let's go to Powerline. All right, so get those fonts installed. What we need to do is we need to clone this. So I'm just going to come over here and let's go back to iTerm and directory in my root directory. S2ls. All right. Actually, let's not do this. Let's go to the documents first. So I'm going to go into my documents. And it asks me if I want permission. I say yes. All right, so now we're cloning that. So we just clone that. All right, so to install it, it says here to cd, change directory into the fonts. I'll come back here. cd ls cd fonts. All right, and let's run that. And we just installed the Powerline fonts. So that's done. Let's come back to Gnoster and add new sequence to the prompt. Alright, I'm going to come back to this. This update seems to be taking a little bit longer than I'd like, so I'm going to say not now. And so I've got Docker installed. The next thing I want to do is I want to get Visual Studio Code set up. So let's come over here. I'm going to say VS Code. And you can see here that they have code.visualstudio.com. They have a universal stable build for the Mac. So I'm going to go ahead and select that. And looks like it's downloading. All right, so let's come back here. Let's open that up. All right, so now we've got Visual Studio Code. I'm going to select over here, drag that over into my applications, and this is an important app too, so I'm going to go ahead and move that down here next to my Docker. All right, so we've got Docker. I'm going to move the terminal over here next to that because that's almost as important to me as Visual Studio Code. I'm also going to come over here and take Xcode and move that down here as well. So we've got Xcode. And the next tool I want to go ahead and install, actually I'm going to go ahead and start up Visual Studio Code. All right, so we're opening up Visual Studio Code. Code is open. And I believe there's a tool here. Visual Studio, let's go to settings. They have essentially a tool that allows you to launch Visual Studio Code from the terminal. And I don't remember what that is off the top of my head, but since we have Google, I'm going to do search here. Actually, let's take a look here. Setup, Mac OS. All right. All right, so this part right here, all right, they actually do that from the command palette. So I'm gonna come back here and let's go ahead and get that installed. So we'll do Command Shift P. It brings the command palette. I'm gonna say install. What is this? Install shell command, install code command and path. So I'll click yes. And it's asked me for my password. All right, so it's successfully installed. So if I want to test that out, I'm going to come back here to my terminal and I'm going to come back. Actually, let's see if we can't open this up. So I'm going to say code period, and it's asked me if I want to open that up, and sure enough, yes, it's bringing back and it's showing all the different tools here. I can select this install sh, and it shows you the file. So now we've got Visual Studio installed. There's actually quite a bit to get set up. A lot of this is going to depend on which languages and tools that you support with Visual Studio Code. I primarily use Visual Studio Code for web development, Node.js development, but you can also use it for C++, C, a whole list of other languages. It's very popular with Rust, you name it, shell scripting. It can do pretty much anything. So there's a lot more to get to do with getting that set up, getting things like Prettier and other tools like that set up in here. I'm gonna cross that later. I want to get kind of some of the other cooler tools and stuff installed in here. So on top of doing iOS development, I also do some Android development. So the next thing I want to do is I want to get Android Studio set up on here. So I'm going to say Android Studio. All right, here's Android Studio. Select Android Studio. Download it now. And it looks like the Hedgehog release just came out, so I'm going to go ahead and select that. It's asking me to go through the terms and conditions. And we're going to select the Apple chip. All right, so the Apple chip is looks like that is going. So this is also a pretty big one, 1.1 gigabytes. Let that finish up. All right, so open that up. Once again, it's a matter of just copying over the applications folder. Now, one of the things that's important with Android Studio, in order to build, there's a lot of other tooling and stuff that it's most likely going to have to install. So if you want to work with or test with simulator, there's a standard or built-in simulator that you can use with Android Studio. I'm not going to worry about getting that stuff set up right now, but what I want to do is I also want, since we've got Studio installed here now, I want to take this icon and also drag this down here. So this is an important tool like Visual Studio Code. Select that, run it, it's verifying. All right. This is a fresh install, so I'm not going to worry about doing that. Don't send. All right, so it's going through the wizard. Let's say standard, next standard. A lot of this stuff, specifically like the emulators, which version, there's obviously just over the course of 15 years, there's been a lot of different operating system versions of Android. I'm just going to install the latest stuff here, so I'm going to come here and say accept. Same thing with the ARM license here. Accept. Click finish. And it's going to install that stuff. I'm going to let it do that in the background because this is a ton of stuff. This is, I believe, gigabytes worth of executables and downloads and stuff like that. So I'm just going to let that go in the background. I'll move that over here. All right, so we've got Visual Studio Code installed. We've got Docker installed. We've got Homebrew, iTerm. So a lot of the key tools and stuff that I need to do my development are now on here. I'm going to come back to the OMI-ZSH agnoster. All right. And let's see, how do we install this? Compatibility. User host. All right. So let's do this. Let's come over here, and I'm going to come back into my root, and let's open up them, and I'm going to say RC. All right, so now we've got that. Let's come down here. Actually, let's see here. I'll be Russell. All right, let's change this. So I'm going to come over here, and I believe the theme I want to use is going to be agnostic. Let's copy that, come back out here, paste that in. All right, escape, quit, and let's load that up. Source. All right. So we're getting there. It doesn't look like it's loading up the Powerline font. I'm going to quit this and open up the. All right, so let's go to settings and let's go to parents. Let's come back to iTerm. All right, well, there's a bunch of other stuff I want to try to get installed here. I'll worry about getting this set up a little bit later. So let's go and kill that, blow this up a little bit. So the next thing I want to do is I want to get ASDF installed. If you're not familiar with ASDF, ASDF is, it's right here, it's a tool for basically managing multiple different versions of different runtimes. So for instance, if you're running Node.js or you're running Python and you want to be able to work with different versions sometimes and different folders or globally, you can do that with this ASDF's VM here. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is I am going to get started here, and it gives you different options here for installing. This here is letting you clone the tool, but I think since we have Homebrew installed, it's giving me here a couple different options here. Bash and Git. All right, so it looks like they even have an option here for ASDF. All right, so I want to see if I can do this with core. So here's an example here I get to set up with Homebrew. So I'm just gonna come over here, copy that command, paste that in. All right. I'm not sure that did anything. All right, completions. Let's do this. All right, so it looks like they installed the shell, but it's not installed here. I'm going to go ahead and use Homebrew to install this. So the way that works is you just come over here and you say brew, install ASDF, and we'll let that go. Hopefully this will go pretty quickly since I already installed, I just installed Homebrew on here. All right, so let's do this ASDF. All right, and sure enough, there's all the different commands here. So the next thing I want to do is I want to get the latest version of Node.js installed. So I'm going to come over here and we're going to go to the Node.js.org website. Here is Node.js, and 20.10.0 is the latest LTS version. That's the version I want to install. So I'm going to say ASDF install Node.js 20.10.0. And I don't have the plugin, so the next thing to do is to add the plugin. So let's come back here. And plugins. All right. This configuration, plugins. All right, here's the Node.js plugin. All right, so it says right here that all you have to do to add the plugin is run this ASDF command, ASDF plugin, add Node.js, and here is the repo. I'm just going to copy that, come back here. All right, so we just installed the plugin. I'm going to run that last ASDF command again, and voila, now it's installing Node. All right, so Node is installed. If I come over here and type in node-v, it's not recognizing anything, but we can try creating a new terminal window, and I'll say node-v, and it's not saying anything. So I got to figure out why that's not working. All right, so I might have skipped a step here. Let's make sure we install that globally. So I'm going to come back here and I'm going to say ASDF. If we just run ASDF, they'll come back with a list of commands. I don't remember specifically what the command is, but we do want to install this globally. So the format there is ASDF global name version. So I'm going to say ASDF global Node.js 20.10.0. All right, now let's do node-v, nothing. Let's open up a new terminal window. We'll say node-v, and voila, there it is. We got the latest version of Node. Type in just node, and that brings us into the REPL. I can test this. I can say const my var is equal to some value, and do console.log my var. All right, so now we've got some value being returned. So let's say that's working. Exit out of there. We can clear all those tabs. All right, so now we've got that set up. While that's been going on, Android Studio looks like it's just about finished. And I'm going to go ahead and quit out of there. It looks good. So now we've got Xcode, we've got Node, we've got ASDF, we've got Docker, we've got all those tools installed. And let's see, what else do I want to get installed? Let's see about adding Python. So I want to see here. This is, let's take a look here. They've got Ruby. I do need to get Ruby because every once in a while I do use CocoaPods and Fastlanes and tools like that. So let's go ahead and get that installed. So let's see here. Let's see if it'll let me install that without a plugin. ASDF install Ruby 2.5.3. Helps I spell the whole thing out. ASDF. All right, so there's no such plugin for Ruby. So let's see here if we can't find a plugin for Ruby. All right, so here's the plugin for Ruby. Go over here and let's install that. And it's downloading Ruby. That's running through make. Now, every Mac that's been sold for, I think, since Mac OS 10's come with a version of Ruby installed on there. If you're using tools like React Native or CocoaPods or one of those, generally a lot of times those tools want you to use a specific version of Ruby. And it's usually typically a little bit newer, so I'm going to let that run. And while it's running, I'm going to look up Python and getting Python installed. So let's come over here. Let's just do a search for ASDF Python plugin. And voila, here is the plugin for Python. Let me come back here to the terminal. And it looks like that failed. That's not good. ARM. I'll have to take a look at that a little bit later. But I'm going to go ahead and get Python installed on here. All right. So let's see. I think the latest version of Python is like Python 3.11. Version of Python. So I guess 3.12 was released in October. So let's go ahead and get that installed. So let's say ASDF, and we're going to say install Python 3.12.0. And while that's going, let's see if, what else can I find out here? All right, so let's get that set up. All right, so we're going to change this to Python 3.12.0. All right, so now if I come in here, I type in Python-v. Let's try new tab. All right, Python-v. And it looks like that is working, or at least it's coming back with a set of errors here. What are we looking at? Maybe Python. That was just test this. I'll say R is equal to some text. Oops. All right, so that's working. So we'll say let's quit. All right, so we're back out of there. All right, so we got Python installed. Ruby's still not working yet. The one other language I'm going to take a look at here about installing is Mojo. So let me come over here, and I'm going to go to modular. All right, modular. Here we go. All right, so let's come over here. I'm going to go to login, and I think yeah, there we go. Submit. All right, it's asking me for a verification code, so I'm just going to come over here and grab that from my email. I'm looking at the wrong email account. All right, let's add an account. Next. All right, so here are instructions for how to install the Mojo SDK on here. So a couple of things. They have a URL here for shell commands. Come back out my shell. Let's run that. And it's updating Homebrew. And while it's running here, I'm going to copy the next command. So that's installing the modular tool. This is a CLI tool that they developed. And it looks like it's checking out an older version of Python. All right, so now I've got that installed. I'm going to put in that command, modular install Mojo. So if you're not familiar with Mojo, Mojo is a new language. It's essentially a superset of Python. Think of Python with types, but also like ridiculously fast. It's the company is being run by Chris Latner, who's the guy who came up with the LLVM compiler framework while he was a grad student, and then went on to Apple and developed Clang, worked on Objective-C 2.0 language, worked on Swift, which is now the standard language for most of Apple development, and he's since gone on and worked at a couple different companies, including Google. But he's been working in the ML space, and so Mojo is basically, it's a language meant for data scientists, machine learning experts, AI developers. But it's set up basically because that whole area of software, is really, it's all been done in Python. And so what they're really doing here is they're leveling up those Python programmers and giving them essentially a lot of really cool new capabilities. So I'm just going to come over here, I'm going to type in Mojo, and it's not seeing that. I may have to, here's instructions here on how to add this. So it wants me to add it either to my ZSH or my bash profile here, and they have instructions here on how to add that. So I'm just going to come over here and run each line. All right. And now we're going to reload that. All right, now we'll try Mojo. And voila, now we've got Mojo. So I can come over here and I can do something I did before. Python, say my var is equal to my text. And voila, friends were little. So let's quit out of that. All right. Let's try exit. Let's try this. Well, it's supposed to be quit. So let me out. All right, so there's one other thing I want to try installing in here to get this set up, and that is going to be, let's see here, I want to get Rust installed. So with Rust, there's a whole set of tooling that also includes something called Cargo. So I'm just going to say install Rust and Cargo. And so to install this, you just put that curl command in here. All right, we want to proceed with the installation. All right, so like the other tools now, they want us to configure this. So to get started, you may need to restart your shell. So let's just do this to configure the current shell. Let's just do this. And now we can say cargo. And sure enough, that tool is installed. So we've got that installed. So that is pretty much just about all of it. I didn't want to waste a lot of time going through and trying to get all my ZSH and Agnoster and stuff set up. So I'm going to skip that for right now. But I've pretty much got all the different development tools on here that I need to be able to work. The one exception is GitHub and getting GitHub set up. So I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to call it an evening here. So I'm going to do a quick search here. GitHub set up on a new Mac. Now, the reason why I'm doing this search here, one of the things that can be a little bit tricky about getting GitHub set up on a new Mac is that to configure all the command line tools and everything like that, I forget, I tend not to use any of the GUI programs, even though some of them are really good. I just prefer to do everything in the command line. So because of that, I need to make sure that I get all this stuff set up correctly. It looks like there's a Medium post here on how to get that set up, but I'm going to go here to the GitHub. All right, and let's see here, set up Git. All right, so we already have Git installed. I'm going to install this GitHub tooling here. So let's come over here and let's say brew install GH. GH is the GitHub command line tool that you can use for talking specifically with GitHub. So I'll run that. While that's doing, I'm going to come over here and just make sure I am logged into GitHub. All right. Turn on sync. Let's do that. Let's come here and go sign in. And let's see here. I just got a text message with my sign-in code. Apologize if you can't see this, specifically keeping this off screen. All right, so I am signed in to my GitHub, and to prove that, I'll just bring the screen over here so we can see that. All right, and let's come over here. And the next thing we want to do is we want to run this command GitHub auth login. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to say GitHub login. I don't need that period at the end. All right, we're just using GitHub. I'm going to use HTTPS. Do you want to authenticate with your GitHub credentials? I'm going to say yes. And we're going to log in with a browser. So let's come over here. And it just gave me a one-time code. So I'm going to copy that code. And it says, please press enter to open github.com in your browser. So, all right, so it's coming here, it's asking me to log in. And let's do this GitHub. it's asking me for SMS. All right, put that code in. All right. All right, so it says I am all set, and then voila, I'm now logged in. So hopefully that's did everything that I need to do in order to be able to get set up with GitHub. But it it's looking pretty good. I'm going to try to do a quick experiment here just to see if that worked. So one of the things I like to do is I'm going to come here to my documents, and I'm going to create a new folder here called Node, and cd into my Node folder, and let's make another directory. I'm going to call this projects, and we'll cd into that as well. All right, so now we're in projects. Now we're in there. I'm going to see if I can't clone a repo. So I'm going to say clone https hub.com, and I'm going to try to pull up my personal website here. .get and all right, so let's cd into that. All right. So let's see if we can open that up in Visual Studio Code. All right. So one of the things I want to show with this, now I've pulled this up, if we come over here and we take a look, let's say, at pages. So one of the things it should start to prompt me to do here, look at this, if you're pulling up, let's say, a React page, whatever, a lot of times what it'll do is it will suggest plugins and stuff like that for working with that. I'm going to skip most of that. I am going to install Prettier. All right, so we've got that installed. And I'm going to try making a change here. I'm going to quit out of here. And I'm just going to make a change to the README file. So I'm going to come over here and say README. All right. And insert. All right. And we can see there that it's notice change here of get. I'm going to say get add readme.md. And let's see if we can push this. Actually, we need to commit it first. And that does work. So it looks like Git's all set up and configured over here. I mean, there's probably some additional stuff I should set up with the globals. I'm going to skip that for right now, but the important things are I've got all of my tooling installed. I've got Visual Studio Code installed. I've got Xcode installed. I've got Android Studio installed, and that's pretty much all I need for being able to develop on this machine now. So I didn't take too long. I'm going to go through here and try to figure out specifically how to get Agnoster working properly. But other than that, it looks like everything's working on this this new machine outside of the third external monitor. So I'm gonna go ahead and end the broadcast, but if you're watching, thanks for watching tonight.